This review is written to assess the importance and applicability of the book From Mud to Music by Barry Hall to arts and educational settings. This will show how it could be used as an informational resource to be applied in a visual art or music classroom to serve their intrinsic purposes, as well as how this could be utilized to promote inclusive arts education through a cross-curricular model. This book is divided into chapters based on varying content. The first introduces the premise of the book and its central theme of making and enjoying musical instruments made from clay, including an overview of the text, information for historical grounding, as well as the author's philosophies regarding clay being used to produce audible music and what actually constitutes to music in a cultural context. The majority of this book describes the various types of instruments that can be created using clay, from percussive to stringed and wind instruments. 2 chapters are completely dedicated to visual galleries and artist biographies. There is a useful chapter for those interested in specific construction and tuning processes that breaks down step by step how to make 5 different clay instruments. From Mud to Music concludes with a chapter of descriptions correlated to an accompanying compact disc with musical tracks all performed on instruments described throughout the book. This book is a valuable resource simply because there is no other text that covers this topic in such immense detail and through various perspectives, like makers, musicians, educators, and enthusiasts. Aside from this text, finding information related to making ceramic instruments includes pottery magazines, internet resources, music shops, artisans, museums, and galleries, but these are limited in each of their scope. Information from these other sources and more are included in this one text. Let's look further at how it could be used in these various contexts. Starting from the perspective of a visual art teacher, this book is a great visual resource that could be useful for students to draw inspiration. This text could be an entire curriculum in itself, or used as a guidebook for students if they are creating their own portfolio of work that relates to this theme. It includes specific information for how to create clay instruments. There are 5 different examples that include written and visual guided demonstrations for constructing, tuning, and playing the instruments. Each of these examples shows a different method of construction, including pinch, coil, slab, extrusion, and wheel throwing, so you could adapt to various skill levels or limitations within your classroom resources. This book also provides historical references to each of the instruments to help your students understand what they are making in its cultural context. These examples could also be used out of context of their musical function and observed simply for their various aesthetic value. Chapter 9 of this book includes prominent artist profiles, each with interesting stories and varying backgrounds that could also provide contemporary context to this style of work or serve students if they are assigned to choose an artist to research and present or respond to. A music teacher could also use this book in various ways. It could simply serve as a means of listening, interpreting, and responding to the various Western, multicultural, and non-traditional music included with this book. A teacher could also refer to specific instruments pictured in the text from a specific time and culture to compare and contrast the function and traditions of the instruments students typically use in their own performances. This could also be used as a resource for a cross-curricular project where students could make instruments themselves and then perform solos or ensembles with the instruments through improvisation or substituting their typical instruments to play in pre-rehearsed music if the function of the instrument permits. There are certainly more possibilities that could be implemented from this text. Those presented were used specifically to relate to Utah core standards within secondary instrumental music and secondary visual arts. Though this book has been reviewed in the context of its applications to education, this is also a great resource for artists, musicians, and the general public that enjoys either art or music. Musicians can find inspiration from clay instruments for their unique tonal qualities or through the various forms of music played, from very earthy sounds to classical standards like Vivaldi's Primavera from the Four Seasons, played by an Italian ocarina ensemble. Artists could also use this to inspire new ways of forming sculptural objects with a new purpose. This book could also be enjoyed simply because of its spectacle. Many of these instruments are stunning and unique, and the added ability to listen to the way they sound adds to their extravagance.